What's going on, y'all? Welcome back. It's Ars. Let's get productive. So I hope everyone had an amazing new year, spending a lot of time with your family. This year's been crazy. 2021 has kind of been a whirlwind. One thing that has been a whirlwind in a positive way is all of the dope plugins and dope VSTs that we got to review this year, that we all got to get our hands on. It's been a great time for plugins. So what I want to do is just do a quick rundown of my top 10 favorite VSTs. Now, this is just my favorite VSTs. I can't argue with anybody about what VST is better than what VST overall, but these are my top 10 favorite VSTs that I've been using all year that I really love. I did this last year and the year before that, and I wanted to do it a little bit different this time. So what we're gonna do is, instead of me going over the pros and cons of each VST, I'll still talk about the things that I love about each VST, but instead of breaking it down into pros and cons, we're gonna have my top 10 in ranking order, and I'm gonna break everything down into 5 categories. The 5 categories being sounds, features, user experience, price, and OS. And what OS stands for in this situation is opinionated score. Now, the opinionated score is just my score of the VST. Like, I thought it would be good to throw that in there because there are some VSTs that I feel are technically better than certain VSTs, but I don't always like using them as much as other VSTs. And I think there's a bit of a something that you can't quite put your finger on about certain VSTs that may not on paper be better than other VSTs, but you just like using them more than other VSTs. So I thought it'd be good to throw the OS in there, the opinionated score, just so I can throw my score of the VST along with these other features. And we're gonna break everything down in ranking order, my top 10. So without talking any more about it, let's get right into it. Top 10 favorite VSTs of 2021. Now at number 10, Pigments. So for sounds, Pigments got a 10. For features, it got a 10. User experience, it got a 10. Where it really got hit was in the price department. For price, it got a 4. It's a little expensive, and we'll get more into that in a second. For OS, my opinionated score, I gave it an 8, and I'll explain that in a little bit. But the total score for Pigments was 42. Now, Pigments is a really great synthesizer. I think anyone that picks this thing up and just uses it for a little bit, you're gonna be able to see that there's so much capability and there's so much power in this synth. You can do so many things with the wavetables and the LFOs, and you can really do some incredible sound design with this thing. My only con for this thing really is the price. It is definitely one of those VSTs that once you get it, you'll be able to build more on it. They have expansion packs available for it, and you can really kind of dive into the world of Pigments and do a lot sound-wise with it. It's just something that's not in everybody's price range. Now at number 9, I have Initial Slice by Initial Audio. So as far as sounds, it got an 8. Features, it got an 8. User experience, it got a 9. Price, it got an 8. And the OS, my opinionated score, was a 9, which brought this thing at a total of 42 and put it in 9th place in my top 10. The reason I really like this thing is because of what I can do with the programming of drums in it. I really like their drum sequencer in there, and I like the drums that come with it. Just programming drums on that thing, for me, I really enjoy it, and I think that's why I got such a high OS score on my rating, is just because I always seem to grab it when I need to get drums done. Initial Audio has a great sound design department, and as far as their expansions go for their VSTs, they always have really dope loops, and having Initial Slice allows you to take advantage of all of the really great expansions that Initial Slice has. You can kind of get the best of their sound department along with some really great features inside of the Initial Slice VST. I love the fact that you can drag and drop the wave files right off of the drum sequencer right onto your DAW, and it just makes for a really smooth workflow in regards to creating drum patterns and slicing samples. I just really like it. Now at number 8, I have Scorch by Sourceware. So as far as sounds go for Scorch, I gave it a 10. Features, I gave it a 10. User experience, I gave it a 9. Price, I gave it a 5. And OS, my opinionated score, I gave it an 8, giving it a total score of 42. If you're a hip hop producer, I think you're really gonna love this VST just because of the uniqueness of the sounds and the features inside this VST that not a lot of other hip hop romplers and trap romplers have. There's some features in this thing that allows you to really stretch and mangle the already dope sounds and create something new. The center knob, the scorch knob, you can kind of turn it up and turn it down and really get a lot of nice textures and interesting elements to the sound that is already dope. They have combinations of layers of sounds inside of this thing, and it comes with its own built-in chord generator, which is really dope and really unique. And they took the time to make sure that the different chords and chord progressions programmed inside of the chord generator are popular chord progressions, the type of chord progressions you're actually going to hear on the radio and you're actually going to hear on the billboard. And I think they really took the time to make sure that this VST was something that was catered to the hip hop community, and you can hear it from the uniqueness of the sounds and the expressions in the sounds all the way down to the different types of effects and what you can do with those sounds via the effects. It's a really dope VST. The only con for this VST that I have is the price. It could be a little bit expensive. If you don't mind spending $120 something on a VST, you're gonna get a really dope VST, and this one comes in at my number 8, Scorch. Now, coming in at number 7, we have the Virtual Realm VST by Digital Pro Sounds. Now, for sounds, I gave Virtual Realm a 10. Features, I gave it a 7. User experience, I gave it a 10. And price, I gave it a 10. The OS, my opinionated score, I gave it a 10, giving an overall total score of 47. And I really love Virtual Realm. Now, this is a really simple VST, simple rompler. As soon as you get it, you'll see that there's not a lot going on in the UI other than the really beautiful graphics and the center display. It's really cool and retro looking, but it's a pretty simple UI. And as far as the features go, it's enough features for what it does. And the main thing that I think really makes this thing competitive is the price and the sounds. This thing is super affordable, but it's full of amazing sounds. And once you start going through it and listening to all of the different sounds that they have in it, everything from different chord one-shots to bells to basses. There's an 808 bass in there that I use on a lot of my beats just because it's very wide sounding but still very punchy. So you get a very submersive sound, but it still punches through the track. It has a lot of really interesting sounds and dynamics to this VST, and I don't feel like there's any sounds in this thing that are wasted, which is one of the reasons why this is in the position that it is in my top 10. There's a lot of romplers out there that have 300 presets, but you don't really want to use all 300 of the presets that it has. With this VST, the presets that are in there are very well selected and the sounds are curated in an amazingly beautiful way. They all sound good. Every sound sounds different and they sound good. And there's a lot of sounds that don't sound like sounds that I have in other romplers and samplers. So I really find myself going to the Virtual Realm VST a lot, and I think you'll really enjoy it. So don't forget to check out Virtual Realm by Digital Pro Sounds at number 7. Now, number 6, I have Arcade by Output. Now for Arcade, sounds, I gave it a 10. Features, I gave it a 10. User experience, I gave it a 10. Price, I gave it a 10. OS, my opinionated score, I gave it an 8, giving you a total of 48. This thing really rocks. I go to Arcade all the time. It's very rare that I make an entire beat using Arcade. It is a sample-based VST. It's full of a lot of different sample chops, and it has these kind of, I call them sound engines. It has a lot that you can do inside the actual VST itself, and the UI is very user-friendly. You can chop up your own samples. You can take the samples that are already in there, and they're constantly updating it with new sounds and different sound libraries of samples that you can kind of just chop up and do your own thing with. And the effects in this thing is really incredible. It's just it really literally is an arcade of sounds. It's a lot of fun to use. The UI is beautiful, and I always find something in there that's unique that I would not have found unless I used Arcade. You can get a lot of interesting textures in your hip hop beats and a lot of live sounds, and and guitar riffs and really interesting bass lines and vocal chops that it would be kind of hard to find anywhere else. You can get it all in one place by using the Arcade VST. And for what this thing does and everything that it has, like I said, it allows you to drag and drop your own samples and use the built-in effects and modulations that they have inside this thing. You can use it on your own samples. For all of the different features this thing has, I think the price for the subscription is super affordable, and you're getting a lot at that price. So it's definitely something that I think you guys are gonna wanna check out. Now at number 5, I have Virtual Power by Virtual Waves. So for sounds, gave it a 10. Features, I gave it a 10. User experience, I gave it a 10. Price, I gave it a 10. OS, my opinionated score, I gave it a 9, giving it a total of 49, almost a perfect score. It is one of those VSTs that's kind of like a hidden gem, and with the recent updates, they kind of took all of the things that was great about it before and just made it better with enhanced features, enhanced UI, more expansion packs. This thing is a rompler on steroids. It has a whole lot of different effects and a whole lot of different features, from your delays to your LFOs, all of these different kind of things. It has an arpeggiator and a built-in MIDI randomizer. All of these really cool things that you're getting inside a sample-based VST. But where the thing really shines is its sounds. The sounds in this thing are really incredible. And I gotta say, when you're playing some of these sounds inside this really dope VST, while looking at the really beautiful UI and a really cool animation that it has in the center of the UI, it's just really inspiring, and I find myself using it a lot in the beats that I create. So I had to put it at number 5. Virtual Power, really dope VST. Coming in at number 4 is Tapes 01 by the Phono Loop. So for sounds, I gave this one a 10. Features, I gave it a 10. User experience, I gave it a 10. Price, I gave it a 9. OS, my opinionated score, I gave it a 10, giving it a total of 49, almost a perfect score. This is another VST that really deserves the spot it's in. And even though for the price I gave it a 9 instead of a 10, that's really just because it could seem a little bit expensive, but when you really break down what this thing has to offer and all of the different features and effects that come inside of this VST, it's priced very appropriately. Now, what you're getting with Tapes 01 is some heavily saturated piano sounds, pads, experimental sounds, effects, just a lot of really interesting textures and sounds inside of this VST. Now, the sounds in this VST, a lot of them have a lo-fi feel to it, and a lot of that is because the way that these sounds were sampled using actual analog gear. There's a lot of warmth to these sounds, and it's unique, and the presence that these sounds give you in your tracks are second to none. They're very unique, very different. It's super cool. The features inside of this thing, large. The experience of using this thing, awesome. So definitely check out Tapes 01 by the Phono Loop. I think you're gonna have a lot of fun with it. Coming in at number 3 is Octane. So for sounds, I gave this thing a 10. Features, I gave it a 10. User experience, I gave it a 10. Price, I gave it a 10, and my opinionated score, I gave it a 10. This thing gets a perfect score of 50. I really can't think of anything bad to say about Octane. I mean, it's a really dope rompler, but then they ventured into the subscription-based service territory and really took a dope rompler and a dope concept, a dope UI, just a box full of dope sounds and features to a whole new level with the subscription-based service, because now weekly you're getting updated with new sounds and new expansion packs to add to this already dope VST. It comes full of features, your typical features that you would see in a rompler, as well as other features that you don't get in a lot of romplers, like there's a lo-fi section, you have your arpeggiator mode, a lot of really cool things to tweak these sounds. It comes with 2 different sound layers, so you can layer your sounds up. You can do a lot of really great things to these sounds that are already curated in a beautiful way. So you have a box full of dope sounds that you can take to a whole nother level once you start messing with the features in this thing. And the price for everything that you're getting in this thing, the price is unbeatable. I mean, honestly, if this thing was priced at $50 and $60, it would still be worth it to get it. This VST has been in my top 10 for like the last 2 years, the last 2 or 3 years. And that's because nothing has changed. I still use it heavily in my workflow, and it's still a beast of a VST. And like I said, since they've added the subscription-based service, you can really get a lot more out of something that was already incredible. So Octane is a really dope VST, and it's something that you guys should definitely check out. So we're now down to our last two, our final two. Now this is really difficult for me. There is not much difference as far as the likability factor to these two VSTs. So trying to figure out which one I was gonna make number one and which one I was gonna make number two was a little bit complicated, a little complex, but I figured it out, and we're gonna go over why I made these choices. So we're gonna start with number two. Coming in at second place in my top 10 is Tape Piano 2 by The Nathan. So for sounds, I gave this thing a 10. Features, I gave it a 10. User experience, I gave it a 10. Price, I gave it a 10, and OS, opinionated score, I gave it a 10, another perfect score. There's nothing bad to say about Tape Piano 2. Now, the old version to this was in my old top 10, I believe it was a couple of years ago, and then they did a new version, Tape Piano 2, and it's next level. I have a whole review on this channel, so if you want to go check out the review for Tape Piano 2, you can, it's on the channel, but I love using Tape Piano. It's basically a VST that's catered to lo-fi, full of amazing piano sounds, pads. You can layer them up, you can saturate them with effects, you can even do record scratching effects to it. There's so many different cool things you can do to it. Add record crackle. It's full of features. Like I said, I have a whole review on the channel. You could check out a lot of the features that come inside of this thing. It comes in at a really great price. The Nathan never seems to disappoint when it comes to his VSTs and his plugins, and this is another one that just really took things to another level. Anybody out there that used the old Tape Piano and you haven't checked out Tape Piano 2, it's leaps and bounds better than the old one. Not only does it have all the sounds that the old one has, but it has way more sounds and way more features. It's definitely worth checking out. If you're looking for a really cool VST that gives you sounds that work really great and lo-fi beats, but sounds that also work really well in R&B beats and even EDM and dance beats, this is an incredible plugin, something that you should definitely check out. So check out Tape Piano 2 by The Nathan. That is number 2 on my top 10. So now we're down to our final spot, number 1. It was tough figuring out what I was gonna put at number 1, but I really just couldn't lie to myself, and I had to pick a VST that I find myself really using all the time. And this is a VST that I use all the time. So at number 1, I have Signature by Producer R&B. For sounds, I give this thing a 10. Features, I give it a 10. User experience, I give it a 10. And price, I give it a 10. The OS, my opinionated score, is a 10, giving it a perfect score of 50. There is nothing wrong with this VST at all. Anyone who has the Signature VST, you know how incredible this thing is. It's a sample-based VST that focuses heavily on pop R&B music, and it's just full of really rich, amazing sounds, and the features in it are really dope. There's a chord generator in there, there's effects in there from delays to reverbs to distortion effects. There's all kind of really cool things inside this VST, but it really just comes down to the sounds, and the sounds are awesome. You have your bells, your pads, your pianos, you have guitars, you have guitar loops, you have vocal samples. This thing is just chock full of really dope and unique sounds that'll help you make your next dope R&B track, and I use it on everything. I love the chord generator, I love the pads in this thing, really unique sounding pads. I love the bells in this thing. I love what they did with the update. Now with the update, you can change the skins and the color of the VST. It's just really fun to use, and I'm constantly exploring and finding new sounds that I didn't even know was there before that really take my tracks to another level. So Signature, number 1. Good job, Producer R&B. So that was my top 10 of 2021. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, if you heard any VSTs in this list that you're not familiar with or you haven't gotten your hands on yet, I'm gonna leave links down in the description below so you can check out all of these VSTs on your own. If I didn't give you enough information in this video, you can go to any one of those websites and get more and dive in a little bit more into what it is these VSTs actually do. I just wanted to do a quick run through of VSTs that I'm really enjoying, and I hope you enjoy enjoy them as well. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on your notifications so that you can stay notified anytime I drop a new video. And thank you for stopping in. Again, have a happy new year, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.